is there any advice you have for someone who's, and maybe there's some specific advice, who's in an organization where there's not a lot of diversity and inclusion? And is it, I need to just get a different environment? Do I try to change that organization?
John, it's a great question. Oddly enough, I actually do address it in Pride Leadership. And for the listeners, that wasn't planned a question, by the way. So that's just very serendipitous.
Sure.
I talk about that because I think as someone who does social justice as a broad term for everything that I do, that takes a toll. I know my Black and brown friends have been like, Steve, we've been doing this stuff for years. And yeah, it gets exhausting. And I'm like, I just have the minor blip of having to say, do I have a husband or wife? And that gets exhausting. I did a podcast yesterday, and the gentleman he's like, do you really think gay leaders are different than straight leaders? I'm like, hell yes, they are, because our experience is different. And that brings a different lens to the table. And so, that kind of stuff does get old after a while, and having those conversations. So in Pride Leadership, I talk about you as an individual leader need to kind of first analyze the culture and the environment. And we've talked about some of those things, looking at the policies, the artifacts, makeup of the senior leaders. You gather all that data, and then you say, okay, if your goal is to make this business, this workplace more inclusive, what's it going to take to change those things? Where are you at? Just like any other strategic project, where are you at? Where do you want to be? And what effort, initiative, and resources need to make that happen? And then you think internally and you say, okay, well, that's going to take a lot of effort. Do you have the bandwidth? Do you have the gumption? Do you have whatever insert word here to help facilitate that change? And if you do, get ready to fight, roll up your sleeves, get the resources, and have those tough conversations that we just talked about. But if you say, you know what, I'm maybe not in a good place right now, maybe I'm going through a lot of other changes, then there's an opportunity to have a conversation with yourself. And is this the right organization to be aligned with? Is your personal values in line with not only just the stated values of the business, because usually those are nice and fluffy, but are they the real values of the business? Because that sometimes is very misaligned than what's on the website or in the break room or whatever. And so you have to do this internal reflection and decide that, you know what, yeah, it is worth the fight, and then carry on, soldier. Or, you know what, maybe it's time I do find another workplace that is more aligned with my personal values and will honor and respect my feeling of belonging in that workplace. And so those are the thought processes I would recommend someone have if they're in a situation where it's not as inclusive as they'd like it to be.